YouTube and welcome back to another MLB The Show 25 video. We are now playing the game for a little while, and I think this is the time where I can finally share what in my opinion are the best settings for casual players, someone like me. This is the team. As you can see, I'm full no money spent, I'm grinding a lot of offline modes, Diamond Quest, and it means I also need to play on some harder difficulties than just Rookie, Veteran or All-Star. And in today's video I want to share the settings I use to help me to even be that sweeper in Diamond Quest or maybe even win the stadium games on Hall of Fame difficulty. If you're here and looking for, let's say, the hitting tips, you're definitely in the wrong place. I still appreciate you clicking on this video, but today I mostly just want to share the settings I use as a casual player, and hopefully you will find something useful. Everyone heard about the custom practice, but today I will not tell you to go there and practice your swing. I personally think that custom practice is the best place to even find the best settings you want to use, for pitching and also for hitting. That's how I find what works for me. So I will jump into the custom practice and show the settings I use, and also I will go through everything else I have currently active and how it helps me to win more games online and offline. But before I do that, I just want to give you a quick tip, and I know probably you already know that. Doesn't matter if you play offline or online, when you have to go into the game and choose the time of the day and the time of the year, always go with 7 PM and October. And the reason why is because you will be able to see the ball much clearer. Okay, and now it's time to go into the settings and look what actually I use. Firstly, hitting interface. I believe everyone should be using zone. I know a lot of people still use directional, and yes, if you're playing franchise mode or I don't know, March to October or any other mode which is not really related to Diamond Dynasty, then use any other hitting interface you want. But if you want to become a better player or even, let's say, be consistent on All-Star difficulty, then zone is the way to go. When we talk about the swing input, it always need to be buttons. You can go with analog stride, analog flick, but unfortunately buttons are the easiest and also the best way to go, because most of the time if you're on PlayStation you will just go with the normal swing, which is the X. Sometimes you can also use the contact swing if you are, let's say, few runs down and you need to get a player on a first or second base, or if you're playing showdown you can also go with the power swing, which most of the time I would say I probably would go with normal swing and it works fine. Then directional camera shift and directional hitting indicator I have on, and then guess pitch I have off because it doesn't really give me anything, and then PCI anchor I have free. A lot of people use preset. I don't know, I just like free because I like the freedom to put and lock my PCI whatever I want, and that also allows me to lock it higher in the zone and lower in the zone. Then all these I have on default because I really didn't change anything. And before I go and talk about my PCI, I want to talk about the hitting view. I use strike zone, and yes, it takes some time to get used to it, and because it's the most zoom in, you will get used to it. Yes, it will take some time to recognize the strike and a ball, but I will help you with that because the PCI I use helps me massively to understand what is inside or outside of the zone. And then when it comes about the in-play view, I just use medium. A lot of people use high, but I like medium. Some people also use broadcast because it just looks the best, but I don't know. I'm used to medium and that's what I use every single year. This year I tried multiple different PCIs, and all this is personal preference. Majority of the player base use BAT because it doesn't change the size, doesn't matter which difficulty you play, Rookie or Hall of Fame, even GOAT, it stays the same size, so it's just easier because you don't really need to get used to the different PCI size. Okay, the PCI is different, but the way how your PCI looks in the strike zone isn't. Also in the past I was using diamond a lot and even circles, but I always go back to the altitude, and it just works for me, and maybe because it's also quite big, and let's say once you're going up in the difficulty it gets smaller, but you still can notice it in the strike zone. Then when it comes about the PCI inner, I have none, and then PCI outer I have reverb. I don't know how you pronounce it, I think I did it right. If not, then just apologize. And then after that, the PCI color is also personal preference. A lot of people use blue, a lot of people use black, yellow, white. I just like cyan. And when I have to choose the opacity, I usually go between 50 all the way to 100, and that just depends how I'm playing that day. And now let me explain why I use this PCI. Firstly, if you place your PCI in the middle, you can see then the PCI outer is a little bit outside of the strike zone. Let's say your opponent is pitching and the ball is touching your PCI outer, you straight away know that's a ball. You don't even need to swing, and it just helps you to get used to what is ball and what is strike. It does only help with inside and outside, it doesn't help you with up and down, but I think up and down it's easier to realize when it's strike or ball, when it's inside or outside, because let's say you are chasing that slider or someone is trying to dot you with a fastball away, it definitely massively helps. And also it always stays the same size because the only thing what changed is the PCI center. So it doesn't matter if you play on Hall of Fame, Legend difficulty, your PCI inside will be much smaller, but you still will be able to use the PCI outer and notice when it's a ball or a strike. Again, this works for me, maybe it's all in my head, but it definitely massively improved my walks, because even in online games now I'm getting at least few walks every single run game, where previously I was just swinging and missing at every single pitch. When we talk about the base running interface is analog select, because I like to use my analog stick to actually indicate to which base I want to go and where I'm running. Because let's say you're trying to steal or someone is trying to catch, you can use your analog stick maybe just to try to get away from him. Then this one, I just didn't really change anything. It is as it is from the day one. Auto base running and auto sliding I have off. And now let's talk about the pitching. If you're new to the game or you're someone who is playing every single year but you're still struggling, I still would recommend and pinpoint is the way to go. A lot of people use pure analog, a lot of people use meter. They both are okay if you're playing online and they just like, I don't know, mess up with your brain that much. But if you're planning to go and play online, unfortunately, you will need to master the pinpoint because it will allow you to dot, it will allow you to throw the best pitches, but it will take you some time to actually learn how to do it. When it comes to the pitching ball marker, I always like to use pitch trail, and the reason why is because not only then it helps me from the pitching side, but also it will help me to understand how that pitcher throws the ball once I will need to go and hit the same pitcher in any offline or online games. Because let's say if Shohei Ohtani is pitching and throwing those cutters, it will help me to remember how that pitch leaves his hand and how it enters the zone or outside of the zone. Same thing about the slurve, which is really difficult to hit, or sinkers or any other pitch you struggle. As you can see, the pitch trail basically shows you the direction how that pitch will enter the zone. And a lot of people don't realize that, but it definitely massively helped me to improve how I'm reading the pitches. A lot of people suggest you have to look into the pitcher's hand. Using pitch trail helped me in my own way, and this is how I'm reading the pitches, or maybe just learning how the pitchers are actually throwing the ball. When it comes to the pitching view camera, I use strike zone 2, and the reason why I use strike zone 2, because firstly, again, it's quite zoomed in, so I can throw the best pitches I can dot, but the most reason why I'm using it is because let's say I just gave up a walk, and Ellie De La Cruz is on the first base, and he's about to steal. If I'm using any other pitching view, it does slow me down and I may not be able to throw the ball and actually catch him. Most of the time you will not be able to throw him out anyway because Ellie De La Cruz have 99 speed. But with this pitching view, I can easily see the runner on the first, on the second, and even the third base. So whenever he's trying to steal, it just gives me a little bit more advantage. Most of the time, I'm actually very successful. Okay, most of the time. I actually lost a lot of games when I was playing against the toxic players. It does definitely help. And then the fielding view is also medium. Like I said, it will take you some time. It's definitely not easy to master the pinpoint, and most of the time I'm not throwing perfect pitches. If I'm using the same pitcher over and over again, for example in online or offline games, I do get used to his pitch speed, so I just basically remember the speed I need to throw those pitches. When there is a new program and I just get a new card, it takes me some time to learn how to pitch with the pinpoint with, let's say, Max Scherzer or any other new pitchers we recently got in the game. But if you do learn how to replicate that speed, which actually basically shows you on top of the strike zone, and you learn how to throw those perfect pitches, again, your gameplay will massively improve. And whatever I'm now saying, it's not like this is must have or must use in the video game. It's just about what I prefer, and I'm sharing how it helps me. If you don't find this helpful, that's fine. Leave me something down in the comment sections below. What do you use? I will go and try it out, and maybe I will become a better player, because I always like to try out something new. Now let's talk about the fielding. Fielding is very important this year. So I have button accuracy. You can have just buttons, but I just prefer button accuracy because that little indicator on top of your player's or fielder's head, and if you, let's say, are holding square because you want to throw the ball to the second base, it just works better. I think everyone uses it, and I don't really know how to use anything else. I think it's also the most accurate one because when I was using buttons in my first year of playing MLB The Show, I was messing up a lot. Then accuracy display I have off, and then throw cancellation I have on, because if I mess up, I always want to go and try again. As far as, again, it's not Ellie De La Cruz who is running, because then I just basically have one shot. Then catch position indicator. A lot of people use truck ball. I just like drifting ball is the biggest one, and most of the time I never mess up and I catch the ball. Then jump dive assistance I have on, auto infield jump reaction I have on, auto infield dive reaction I have on, because in the end of the day, again, you need all the help you can get. Auto fielding I have off, auto throwing I have off, and then vibration I also have off because I just don't like when my controller is vibrating. When you do use the custom practice, I always suggest you go one difficulty higher than you play offline, for example, or even online. If you're watching this video, then I'm assuming then you are mostly all-star player, offline or online, because if you're Hall of Fame or Legend or GOAT, I don't really know what you're doing here, but again, I appreciate you watching. Offline and online, most of the time I play on all-star difficulty. Is it events, ranked, or BR, or even, let's say, Diamond Quest. Just because the timing is so different between offline and online, I'd practice on Hall of Fame, because if you, let's say, you manage to hit the ball on Hall of Fame in practice mode, then you easily will be able to hit the ball online because the timing will be pretty much the same. A lot of people are also saying like you have to go and practice on Legend or GOAT gold difficulty because then you will be really good. Let's be very honest. If you are struggling, you will not be able to hit these difficulties in custom practice. If you're someone who is playing Conquest on rookie difficulty, I probably would suggest you start with All-Star. There is nothing wrong. Get your timing right with All-Star difficulty, so that means you will be able to win more games on rookie or veteran difficulty. If you're confident on those difficulties and want to move over to the All-Star, then I probably would suggest you move to the Hall of Fame. Another new thing this year is auto bullpen warm-up. So it means you never will have a cold guy going in and basically blowing you the game because the bullpen always will be warm up as far as you have this on. In-game pitch warm-up. Make sure this is turned off because that means your offline games will go quicker. And then auto defense shift. A lot of people and a lot of YouTubers will say, turn this off. If you're new to the game or someone who is just playing it casually, have it on. 95% it will help you. Yes, 5% maybe your shift will mess up because it's a CPU in the end of the day, but I don't think you are that good at the game to be able to manually use your shifts. It definitely helped me a lot to get some of those outs. Then umpire accuracy, perfect. A lot of people are complaining about the umpires, but you can actually turn the accuracy on and off. So let's say you're struggling to understand why that was a strike or why that was a ball in Conquest game, just make sure it's perfect and then it will be the closest you can get. Then pitch clock I have on. I don't even think it does anything, but whatever. And then another must-have thing you have to do in settings is turn the wind off. You will notice you will hit more home runs in any mode you play if you will have the wind off. And then quick PCU pitching will help you to have your offline games just go much quicker. And the last thing I want to talk about is the new ambush hitting and how it can help you or not help you. And again, a lot of people are saying use it, a lot of people are saying don't use it, just play the game the way you was playing before. If you are a casual player, I suggest you use it. You just need to understand when to use it. So how ambush hitting works? If your opponent, for example, is constantly pitching you inside sinkers and you're struggling to hit them, firstly, because you have the PCI lock, just lock it inside so you're not slamming your PCI and then move your analog stick to inside. In that way, you will basically ambush anything he's throwing inside, and that means your PCI will straight away get bigger and the velocity will be higher, and it pretty much guarantees you to have a hit or even a home run. If you're struggling to hit pitches away, for example, and you can see that your opponent is constantly throwing you pitches away, you can just ambush away. The only issue is, if let's say you're guessing that he will pitch away, but he actually pitches inside, and then you move your PCI, and even if you perfectly place it, your PCI will be a size of like you would be playing on legend difficulty. And also the timing to make that swing is much shorter. I do use ambush hitting a lot, but against the CPU it's quite easy because they have the same pattern how they are playing and how they are throwing the pitches. For example, most of the time the CPU pitcher will throw you the first pitch away, so you just ambush away, and they rarely ever throw something inside. So again, against the CPU is much easier, but it definitely helped me to win some of those legend games in Diamond Quest, for example. When it comes to online games, if you do notice the pattern of your opponent and how he's throwing the pitches, I suggest you do use ambush hitting as well. If he is really unpredictable and throwing the pitches left, right, up, down, and you really don't know where he's going to throw, if you are down, use ambush hitting because you need all the help you can get. If you, let's say, maybe have a lead, there's no reason of you risking it. In my opinion, ambush hitting is a good addition to this year's game, and it does help someone who is really struggling. Obviously, as everything new, there is advantage and also disadvantage, because if you miss it, then you potentially miss yourself a base hit, home run or something. But if you do guess right, you will get a perfect home run. Because what I struggle the most is hit the inside pitches. So for example, I will ambush inside, and you see we were a little bit down, and also the swing was early. Ohtani has like the best pitch mix, so if you are trying to practice, always practice against Ohtani. And that's a perfect inside fastball, and we did ambush, so that's exactly what ambush hitting does. Also, let's say I'm ambushing inside, you can see the PCI size is much bigger than when I'm moving it outside, so that's what I was trying to say. Now I'd also want to show you something. The way I'm learning to not swing and pitches away is, let's say I go into the practice mode and ask, let's say Ohtani, to pitch me everything away and outside of the strike zone. Then using my PCI, I just leave it as it is and watch his pitches. You can see that the ball will touch the PCI outer all the time. And that's the way how I learn when to swing and when to not swing. The best way is if you place your PCI high, for example, and then just go it down. So yeah, I basically sit here for 10 minutes and just watch the pitches until I get used to it. And then I do the same thing about inside, and it just trains my memory, and then I go and play online, and somehow I manage to get myself more walks. Okay guys, that will do for today's video. As always guys, thanks for watching, have a good one, and see you on the field.